Hey everyone, today we're going to be making this cute poinsettia that can be used as a necklace pendant or as a set of earrings. This tutorial is a companion for these bead kits that I have in my web shop. I'll leave a link to the kit in the description box, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. For this project today, we are going to be using 3 different colors of 11/aught Miyuki delica beads. I'm using the same beads that come with the kit, so I've got a maroon, a green, and a silver-lined gold. We will also be using 8/aught gold Miyuki seed beads. You will need an adjustable necklace cord. The kit comes with one pre-made for you, or I have a link to a video where I showed you how to make your own. I'll leave that in the description. You will need a set of French hooks, 3 wire guards, and 1 4mm jump ring. You will need red and green polyester thread, preconditioned with beeswax. You will also need a sharp pair of scissors and a pair of needle nose pliers. This part's optional, but I've got my handy dandy jump ring opener that I love so much, so I'm going to be using that today as well. I have a 4.5 foot length of red thread threaded onto my big eye needle and ready to go. I'm going to pick up 2 of the red delica beads and pull them down towards the bottom of my thread. I'm going to leave myself a generous tail of at least 3 inches. I'm going to tie my 2 beads together with a double knot. I'm going to position the knot at the bottom of my beads and go up through the left bead with my needle. I'm going to pick up another red bead and ladder stitch it on, so I'm going to go up through the left bead and then back down through the bead that I just put on. I'm going to pick up one more red bead and ladder stitch it on, so I'm going down through the left bead and then back up through the bead that I just put on. I'm going to ladder stitch on another red bead, and we're going to keep ladder stitching on red beads in this manner until we reach 12 beads across. I'm then going to fold over the end with my tail thread coming out of it so that it is right next to my working thread. I'm going to go down through the bead with the tail thread, up through the bead on the right of it, back down through the tail thread, and up through to right again. So what we end up is this nice loop of ladder stitch beads. I'm going to pick up 2 beads and go down through the bead to the left of the one we're coming out of, through the bead below that, and then I'm going to be going up through the 2 right hand beads. And then we're going to go down through 1 left hand bead and up through 1 right hand bead. And this will be the start of our first petal. So from here we're going to be doing an increasing brick stitch, so I'm going to pick up 2 beads and I'm going to go through this middle thread bridge here. Then I go back up through the bead on the left, down through the bead on the right, and up through the bead on the left again. I'm going to pick up another bead and go through that same thread bridge. And then back up through the bead that I just put on. And now we're ready to start on the next row. We're still doing increasing brick stitch, so we're going to pick up 2 beads and go through the first thread bridge. We're going to go up through the bead on the right, down through the bead on the left, and up through the bead on the right again. I'm going to pick up another bead and go through the next thread bridge, and then back up through the bead we just put on. I'm going to be picking up another bead, and since we're at the end of the row and we still need to increase, we're going to be putting our needle through the same thread bridge that we just did. And then back up through the bead that we just put on. And now we're ready for our next row. So here is where we're going to switch from an increasing brick stitch to an increasing drop 3 brick stitch. So I'm going to be picking up 6 beads and threading through that first thread bridge. And then I'm going to go back up through the 3 beads on the left hand side. And then we're going to go down through the right 3 beads and back up through the left 3 beads. Now we're going to pick up another 3 beads and go through the next thread bridge, and then back through all 3 of the beads that we just put on. We're going to pick up another 3 beads and go through the next thread bridge, and back up through the 3 beads that we just put on. And since we're to the end of the row again and we still need to do an increase, we're going to grab 3 more beads and put them through the same thread bridge that we just did. And then back up through all 3 of those beads. And now we're ready to put on the next row. We're going to go back to brick stitch, but we're going to do a decreasing brick stitch this time. So I'll pick up 2 beads and go in through the second thread bridge, up through the bead on the right, down through the bead on the left, and then back up through the bead on the right again. I'll grab another bead and then put it through the next thread bridge, and then back up through the bead I just put on. And 1 more bead, next thread bridge, back up through that bead, and now we're ready to move on to the next row. Pick up 2 beads, go through the second thread bridge, back up through the bead on the left, down through the bead on the right, and up through the bead on the left again. Pick up 1 bead through the next thread bridge, back up through the bead you just put on. And now you're ready for the next row. You're going to pick up 2 beads, go through that second thread bridge, up through the bead on the right, down through the bead on the left, and up through the bead on the right again. Now we are ready to put on our last bead of this petal. So I'm going to pick up 1 gold bead and go down through the left side. I'm going to go down through the leftmost bead of every row, all the way down to the ladder stitches. And there we have our first finished petal. We're going to go up through the left of the bead of the one that we're coming out of, and that sets us up to put on the next petal. All the other 5 petals are going to be made in the exact same way. So you just got to do that 5 more times and then you'll have something that looks a little bit like this. I am putting on my very last gold bead here, and I'm going to go all the way down through all the leftmost beads until I reach the bottom. And then we want to make our way over to our tail thread. So we're going to go up through the bead to the left of me, down through the bead to the left of that, and then our threads will be coming out of the same area and we can tie them together. I'm going to do a double knot to make sure that they're nice and secure. And then I'm going to work the short tail up through a few beads and snippety snip it off. You want to make sure you leave the longer tail on there because we're going to be using it later. So now for our leaves, we're going to do the exact same thing but in green. And we are going to do everything exactly the same as the red one except for the very last bead. So here you can see I've got my green one all made up and everything's exactly the same, but it's missing the very last bead. And instead of putting on a gold bead, we're going to put on a little gold wire guard. And that's going to be what our little poinsettia hangs from. So we're going to go up through one leg of the wire guard, down through the other leg, and I'm going to go around my wire guard a second time to make sure that it's really secure. And then from here, we're going to do exactly the same as we did on the red one. We're going to go down all the way through the left side of this petal and work our way over to the tail thread so that we can tie them together. I'm triple knotting them really tightly and then I'm going to work both ends back in so that I can snip them off. And there I've got my little leaf section done, and now it's time to stitch the 2 pieces together. And we want to stitch these together in such a way that they're offset and the leaves are going to poke out between the petals. So I'm going to thread up my long tail that I left on the red one onto my big eye needle. I'm going to go up through the 2 beads to the right of my working thread and then down the 2 beads to the right of that. And that puts us coming down out of the right side of this petal. And since we want these to be offset, that means we're going to be stitching it to the left side of a green petal. Up through these left 2 green beads, and then down through the right 2 green beads. And when we stitch them up, they'll start to line up for us. And since we're coming out of the right-hand side of this green leaf, we're now going to be stitching up through the left-hand side of the next petal. And then down through the right-hand side of that petal, and then up through the left of this next green leaf. And we're just going to keep stitching them together in that same way until we've made our way around the entire inner circle. So now that I've gone all the way around, they're very stitched together nice and tightly. They're not going anywhere. And here is the point where we're going to start stitching on our center beads. So I've got my 6/0 gold beads out here ready to go. I want to make sure I'm coming down out of the left side of a petal. And then I'm going to pick up one of my 6/0 gold beads and thread it up through the right side of that same petal. Then I'm going to go down the left side of the next petal, pick up a gold bead, and then thread it up through the right side of that petal. And we're going to keep doing that all the way around the inner circle until we have 6 gold beads, so that's 1 for every petal. I've got all 6 beads on there, although it doesn't look like it because some of them have gotten sucked into the hole. So I'm just going to take a pen and sort of push them to the front. I'm going to thread through the center of all 6 of these beads in a circle. And then go back through the first gold bead a second time. I'm going to pick up another gold bead and then thread it through the bead directly across the circle from the bead that I am coming out of. I'm going to go through the next gold bead, then through the gold bead in the center, and then through the gold bead across the circle. And I'm going to do this until every single bead in the circle of 6/0 beads is connected to the center 6/0 bead. And that way I can assure none of these beads are getting sucked into the hole and gonna end up on the other end. Now I'm going to work my thread back through this petal and I'm going to do a bunch of loops around 2 beads so that I can make sure that this is not going to come out. So there, I've done 1 loop around 2 beads. I'm going to move on to a different group of 2 beads and do a loop around there. And then once I feel like it's secure enough, I can make my way over to the edge of the petal and snip it off. And there I have my cute little poinsettia pendant. This one is going to be going on my adjustable cord necklace, so I'm going to grab that, and I'm also going to get my jump ring. I am going to open up my jump ring, put the necklace cord in there, and then I'm going to slide the wire guard on there also. And I'm going to close the jump ring back up, and there we have our finished necklace. And since we're using our adjustable necklace cord, we can have a really long necklace or we can cinch it all the way up into a choker. The earrings are going to be done the same way, except for they're just going to go on a pair of French hook ear wires instead of the jump ring. So if you didn't already come to this video through the bead kit, I do have a bead kit available for this. I will leave a link to it in the description box. It has almost everything that you will need to make this project happen. So that includes the 4 different kinds of beads, the ear wires, the wire guards, the jump ring, the necklace cord, the threads, and also a big eye needle. The only things that you will need that do not come with the kit are a pair of scissors and a pair of pliers. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to see more like it, throw me a subscribe. Like this video if you're feeling frisky, and leave a comment if you got something to say. Okay, bye!